Welcome back. US President Donald Trump says the Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei should be careful with his words. Yesterday, during a Friday sermon, Khamenei said Iran's missile strike on US targets in Iraq was a slap on America's face. In a tweet, Trump said the Iranian leadership must abandon terrorism and make their country great again. President Trump said Iranians who love America deserve a government that helps them achieve their dreams instead of killing them. The US president said Iran's top leader has not been a supreme leader. In the meantime, the US has imposed sanctions on a senior Iranian military official, Brigadier General Hassan Shahwarpour. The State Department took steps against the general over a crackdown on anti-government protesters. Moving on to Canada, whose Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is urging Iran to send the black boxes from a destroyed Ukrainian Airlines plane to France. At an Ottawa news conference, Trudeau said France is one of the few countries which can decode the plane's data black boxes. He said Iran does not have the technical expertise to quickly analyze the damaged data recorders. The Prime Minister said Canada will compensate families of the crash victims. Trudeau said they will receive nearly $20,000 per victim. He said Canada still expects Iran to financially compensate victims' families for their loss. 57 Canadian nationals died when the civilian passenger plane was hit by an Iranian air defense missile. The UK says it's freezing Hezbollah's assets, adding the Lebanese movement to its terrorism blacklist. The move follows last year's decision to list the group as a terrorist organization because of its destabilizing influence in the Middle East. The Foreign Ministry move covers the entire organization as well as its military wing. The opposition Labour Party has questioned whether the Finance Ministry decision is based on new evidence or political opportunism. Israel welcomed the measure, saying Europe is waking up to the threat posed by Iran's proxies. There was no immediate reaction from Hezbollah. The sanctions come amid continued wrangling in Lebanon over the formation of a new government. In Syria, government coalition airstrikes have killed 18 people in the western countryside of Aleppo. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says 15 others were wounded. The Monitor says towns in Aleppo's western countryside are seeing a large movement toward border areas. Schools have been suspended in rural Aleppo because of the intensity of Russian bombing accompanied by Syrian shelling. Elsewhere, clashes have continued between regime forces against rebel factions in Idlib. Meanwhile, the UN Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet has called for an immediate end to hostilities in Syria's opposition-held Idlib province. Turkey and Russia agreed to a truce in war-torn Idlib on January 9th. In a statement, Bachelet said the latest ceasefire attempt has failed to protect the civilians. Bachelet said the airstrikes resumed on January 15th. UN Human Rights spokesperson Jeremy Lawrence said civilians are being targeted on a daily basis in missile attacks from air and ground.
It is deeply distressing that civilians are being killed on a daily basis in missile strikes from both the air and the ground. Women, men and children simply carrying out everyday activities at the workplace, in markets and at schools are being killed and maimed in senseless violence.
Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says Europe will face new problems and threats if the UN-recognized government in Libya falls. In an article, Erdogan voiced support for Libya's government of national accord led by Fayez Mustafa al-Sarraj. Turkish President said militant organizations such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda will find a fertile ground to get back on their feet. An international conference on the conflict in Libya will take place in Germany's capital, Berlin, tomorrow. Officials say draft conclusions of the conference emphasize the importance of forming a unified government for the country. The US, Russia, Turkey and Germany will meet with the warring sides at the conference. A draft communiqué says the summit will push rival parties to agree to a truce and monitoring mechanism as the first step to peace. Yesterday, the UK called the conference an important step to securing a Libyan ceasefire. In a tweet, British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab wrote, his country is committed to uniting all sides behind UN's peace efforts. For more on this, we are joined by Wafa Al-Badri, Berlin-based political analyst. Thank you for your time, Ms. Badri. Now tell us, Berlin will host an important conference on Libya tomorrow. How substantial is this effort, especially after Russia's attempt to establish a truce failed last week?
Thank you. I think Germany have succeeded more than the Russian part in gathering these two fighting parties on Libya and other countries that are involved in this issue on a condition that seems that they might find a solution for this big crisis right now in this area. If they are finding already a solution or not at the end, that's a question of the not only on doesn't come only on Germany, but also for the other countries that are participating in these talks. The German side seems very ready to participate actively in that. Also, Turkey seems very willing to be actively in that, and also Italy and France. However, they are not having the same opinions about the existence of the Turkish forces in Libya.
Now, Ms. Al-Badri, you've rightfully said that this is a big win for Germany for organizing this conference. Now, the officials say the conference's draft conclusions will underline the importance of forming a unified government in Tripoli. How realistic is it to ask the combatants to form a government together, and how substantial it will be?
Looking to the failure that have happened just few days ago in Russia, it doesn't seem very likely to happen that they will find a solution that easily. But at least if they agree on a ceasefire, that would be a good solution at the moment, and then they can continue negotiations. Actually, to start negotiations about having a government, it's a success itself.
A success indeed if the ceasefire is actually realized and agreed upon. Wafa Al-Badri, Berlin-based political analyst, was talking to us. Thank you for joining us. Now moving on. In Somalia, 40 militants from Al-Shabaab have been killed by the National Army. A military official says the militants attacked a base in the Middle Shabelle region in southern Somalia. The military said over 30 assailants were wounded during the firefight. The Defense Ministry says 4 soldiers also died, with 3 others wounded during the attack. In the meantime, the military says 8 militants were killed in a separate skirmish in the state of Jubaland. The militant group also attacked a police station in the southwestern town of Agfeo. Police officials confirmed the attack without providing information on casualties. In Burkina Faso, 5 soldiers have been killed after their vehicle was hit by a roadside IED. A security official said the homemade bomb exploded near the town of Abinda in northern Somme province. The official said reinforcements were sent to the zone to clear the area, while the wounded were evacuated. The region is home to Al-Qaeda and ISIS, but no group has so far claimed responsibility for this attack. Last week, the UN reported a 5-fold increase in militant assaults in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger since 2016. There were over 4,000 reported deaths in 2019, compared to under 800 recorded in 2016. Moving on to Iraq, where at least 2 protesters have been killed and 25 others injured in central Baghdad. Security forces have used tear gas to disperse demonstrators trying to breach the capital's Sinak Bridge. Authorities say 1 canister hit a demonstrator directly in his chest, killing him. Medics say dozens of protesters are suffering with breathing problems. Demonstrations against the political system have rocked Baghdad and Iraq's south for the last 3 months. Over 460 people have been killed in Iraq's mass protests since October 1st. Catholic bishops from Europe, US, and South Africa have urged their governments to recognize the state of Palestine. The plea by 34 bishops of the Holy Land Coordination followed a 5-day visit to the region this week. In a statement, the ground said bishops are inspired by enduring resilience of Palestinians despite the worsening situation they face. The group said they implore their governments to help build a new political solution rooted in human dignity for all. They said there is an urgent need for Western countries to play a part by insisting on the application of international law. We have a lot more coming up right after this short break, so stay tuned. Welcome back. In Yemen, the warring sides are now wrestling over the circulation of old and new banknotes. It is a struggle that threatens to create two economies in the same state. The Houthi rebel movement in control of the capital Sana'a has outlawed the use and possession of new Yemeni rial bills. The Houthis say people should only use the old notes. They said the ban is a move against inflation and the government's rampant money printing. Yemen's internationally recognized government calls the prohibition an act of economic vandalism. People in Houthi-controlled areas have been queuing to exchange their new rials for old since the ban. Moving on to India, countrywide all-women protests and sit-ins continue against new controversial citizenship law. Women activists and students held a massive rally against the law in Mumbai, chanting anti-government slogans. The women in Kota city of Rajasthan state have launched an indefinite sit-in against the act. The organizers said the act is a black law and against the spirit of the Indian constitution. The Uttar Pradesh government has booked over 200 people for organizing a sit-in in the city of Prayagraj. Meanwhile, Shaheen Bagh demonstrators in New Delhi have refused to end sit-in until the government withdraws the act. Meanwhile, the Human Rights Watch has once again slammed India over occupied Kashmir, saying New Delhi is failing on Kashmiri human rights. In a statement, the rights body said India has justified its abuse in the valley in the name of national security. The body said India is violating the right of free expression of Kashmiris despite court orders of ending the ongoing internet lockdown. It said, the reason behind communications blackout is that Indian government is afraid of criticism and dissent. The rights body said New Delhi has curtailed Kashmiris' ability to share news of births or deaths, call doctors, order supplies, and do trade. It said the UN and numerous foreign governments have voiced their concern over ongoing abuses in the valley. China and Myanmar have signed dozens of deals to speed up infrastructure projects in Southeast Asian nation. The agreements were signed during Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to Myanmar to usher a new era of ties. President Xi and Myanmar's leader Aung San Suu Kyi signed 33 deals to support key projects that are part of the Belt and Road Initiative. To boost implementation of the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, President Xi signed a $1.3 billion deal to build a port in Rakhine State. President Xi said he visited Myanmar to support Aung San Suu Kyi's embattled government. Suu Kyi said Myanmar appreciates Beijing's long-term support and her country will always be on China's side. In addition to being its largest investor, Beijing has become an indispensable ally for Naypyidaw as it reels from Western isolation over the Rohingya crisis. Indonesia has released a ship with South Korean crew members after almost 100 days of detention. The country's navy seized the Panama-flagged vessel on October 9th for violating its territorial waters. South Korean officials said the captain's documents were returned before he was allowed to leave the country. The shipping company said the crew members appear to be in good health. Indonesia seized another South Korean cargo ship, the CH Bella, last week. It is still being held in the country on the same charges. In Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky has refused to accept the resignation of Prime Minister Oleksiy Honkary. After a meeting with Honkary in Kiev, Zelensky said he wants to give the Prime Minister another chance. He said this is not the time to shake the country's politics. Kerry offered his resignation after an audio recording suggested he criticized the president. Protesters have clashed with security forces in Chile's capital, Santiago. Water cannon doused protesters who threw objects at police near the iconic Plaza Italia. Chileans have been protesting for better pensions, healthcare, and education since October last year. President Sebastián Piñera approved a referendum on a new constitution in December in an attempt to unify the country. In the meantime, a new opinion poll puts President Piñera's approval rating at only 6%. Only 44% believe the country is a functioning democracy. The manager of the Center for Public Studies, Ricardo Salgado, said it was the worst approval rating of a president since Chile's return to democracy.
This is the worst evaluation a president has had since the return to democracy, since we measured it in the 30-year survey of the Center of Public Studies Public Opinion Program.
In the U.S., 4 people have been shot dead at a residence in Grantsville, Utah. Police say a 5th person was wounded and is now in hospital. Officials say they are confident there was only one shooter who has already been arrested. Police said they are working to contact the family members of the victims. Grantsville is a small town of about 10,000 people in the state of Utah. Thunderstorms have battered parts of Australia's east coast, causing road closures and flash flooding. Despite the heavy rain, the country is still wrestling nearly 100 bushfires. Major highways have been closed in Queensland, with the state having some of Australia's heaviest rain in months. The storms have caused blackouts in New South Wales. The Bureau of Meteorology says the intense rainfall has eased, but thunderstorms are still possible throughout the weekend. New Zealand has sent more reinforcements to help fight Australia's bushfires. The blazes have claimed 29 lives and killed an estimated billion animals. An Australian singer suffered a cardiac arrest and collapsed while performing at a bushfire relief concert in Sydney. 48-year-old Greg Page is a founding member of Australia's popular children's music group, The Wiggles. Page, known to Australians as the original Yellow Wiggle, fell in front of fans while walking off stage at the end of the show. The Wiggles tweeted the singer has had a procedure and is now recovering in the hospital. According to the media, Page is suffering from orthostatic intolerance, a disorder that affects blood flow and leads to fainting. The Wiggles have sold millions of records in Australia and abroad. Chinese authorities have reported 4 more cases of the new coronavirus. Health officials at the inland city of Wuhan said the patients are in a stable condition. Officials say there have been 41 confirmed cases of the illness since December. Earlier, researchers from London's Imperial College said the number of infected people is likely to be more than officially reported. The virus has spread to Japan and Thailand, with South Korea on alert. The US says it will begin screening passengers arriving on flights from Wuhan at airports in San Francisco, New York, and Los Angeles. China is about to launch 2 geostationary orbit Beidou satellites and a new generation of manned spacecraft as part of its ambitious space program. For missions that return moon samples to Earth, its first Mars probe, China will send more than 60 spacecraft into orbit this year. More about space plans in this report.
Different from the previous Shenzhou vehicles, China's new craft will be bigger, utilizing a 2-cabin structure. It's equipped with re-entry and service modules, which adapt to different missions, such as carrying people or cargo.
It is a future-oriented manned space shuttle. We will try to use some thermal structures and reusable technologies to reduce its operation costs. So basically, with the new technologies, we will expand our capabilities to carry people to and back from space.
As one of the country's 3 major space missions, the Chang'e 5 lunar probe is expected to bring moon samples to Earth. The greatest distance between the Earth and Mars is 400 million kilometers. It means a journey time of 7 months before arriving in Mars orbit in 2021. China's current lunar program is divided into 3 phases: orbiting, landing, and returning, with the first 2 phases already completed.
We temporarily call the follow-up mission as the fourth phase of the Lunar Exploration Program. The preliminary goal we set is to establish a lunar research base through 2 to 3 missions. In the foreseeable future, it will be unmanned scientific research base for the long term, where people would make a short visit.
In addition, 3 new types of carrier rockets, the Long March 5B, Long March 7A, and Long March 8, will make their maiden flights in 2020.
Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.